When it comes to compact luxury SUVs, Genesis was a little late to the party, but when the company finally entered the space about 2 years ago with the GV70, I proclaimed it to be one of the best compact luxury SUVs that money can buy. Now, thankfully, that hard work has paid off for Genesis because this model here has become the company's best seller, with Genesis moving about 19,000 units in America in 2022. Now, for 2023, Genesis is looking to expand the GV70 family with this model. This is the Electrified GV70, and what the company has done here is they've plucked out the internal combustion engine, replaced it with dual electric motors, a 77.5 kilowatt-hour battery pack, and up to 236 miles of all-electric range. So if you guys have always had your eye on the GV70, but you wanted to go all electric, how does the 2023 Electrified GV70 stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the exterior styling differences of the electrified version of this car, let's go ahead and pop the hood and show you guys underneath here, because with any electric vehicle, you want to know, does it have a frunk? It does, albeit a very small one. Now, underneath this plastic covering, you can see you can lift this up. There's a very small storage compartment that has enough space for basically the tire mobility kit. Regardless, it's nice that Genesis gives you a small frunk because remember, this starts life as an internal combustion vehicle with the eGMP architecture kind of grafted into the skin of the vehicle inside of it. Now, all the GV70 Electrifieds come standard with dual electric motors, so one at the front, one at the rear, giving you all-wheel drive, 429 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. That's the same power figures that's in the performance version of the GV70. There's also a boost button on the steering wheel that will increase power to up to 483 for about 10-second intervals. So again, this is the most powerful version of the GV70, which is going to be nice for performance. Genesis doesn't quote a 0 to 60 time, but we brought our testing equipment. We can see what we can actually get. It has a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, and like I said earlier, all-wheel drive. This will tow a maximum of 3,500 pounds, so it's actually more versus the GV60, and it should have a top speed of around 146 miles an hour. As it sits, this is heavier because of the battery pack, which it uses a 77.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack, delivering up to 236 miles of electric-only range. As this car sits, it weighs in at just over 5,000 pounds, about 500 to 700 pounds heavier versus the gas model. But let's go ahead and close up the hood, and I want to show you guys where the charge port door is. It's nice and hidden behind the crest grille, which you can see it has the standard J1772 plug and a DC fast charger. I don't like these covers here. I think they're kind of inelegant in how they just dangle when you have them opened up. But this vehicle has an 11 kilowatt onboard charger, which means it can go from 10 to 100% on a level 2 in about 7 hours. Because it runs on the 800 volt architecture, it can charge from 10 to 80% on a 350 kilowatt charger in about 18 minutes, which makes it, again, among the fastest in the segment. But let's go ahead and talk about the exterior styling of this vehicle, because this model here looks basically like the standard GV70, which is a good thing, although as you can see, it doesn't need a grille for the cooling, so it closes off the crest grille, kind of like the GV70, or kind of like the G80 Electrified, which is nice. You can see all of them come with their signature styling elements with their twin LEDs with the quad beam LED, full LED headlights. No fog lights. You can see there's just openings there. There are some functional openings over here. There's your front camera system. The Genesis logo, of course, looks very nice. And overall, you won't be able to tell unless you know the grille is different, which is kind of a good thing. Unlike the GV60, which kind of looks awkward from certain angles, this has a really nice look to it, which I love. Now, if you guys want this vehicle, Genesis only offers it in pretty much neutral colors. You can get it in a matte gray. This is the Seville silver for $600. It looks good when it's all cleaned up, but Genesis says eventually they hope to expand the color palette, but for now you can only get it in neutral colors. Now you can see here the wheels, they are unique to the electrified version. These are a 20-inch wheel wrapped in a 265/45 R20 tire, so it's a bigger wheel and fatter tire versus the GV70 or GV60. You can see the brakes also are 4-piston high-performance brakes with which are painted white, which looks nice, and you can see there the fender trim, you can see, is also painted, which is nice. And this vehicle has a little over 6.9 inches of ground clearance, so it has about an inch less ground clearance versus the gas version of this car. Now, looking at the rest of the profile, you can see this is bigger versus the 60 because it's based on the 70, obviously. At 185 inches long, this is about 8 inches longer versus the 60, and it has a wheelbase of around 113 inches. You can see, looking at the back, you won't be able to tell again that this is the electrified version because there's no special badging back here. It just even says GV70 back here along with the Genesis logo. There is a slightly different rear bumper, which Genesis removed the exhaust tips, obviously, but you still have the same kind of LED light signature here here from the front with the twin lights, which definitely makes it look pretty upscale. Now looking at the cargo area of this vehicle, you can open that up from that button right there. Cargo space is pretty much the same as the gas version. You get 28.5 cubic feet of storage space. With the seats up, you can see there's a good amount of underfloor storage over here where you can put the fast charger or the mobile charger. You fold down the second row seats, it expands it out to just over 56.5. So the space is practically identical to the gas version, which is going to be great if you guys are thinking about going for the electric model as opposed to the gas version. So the exterior of the GV70 Electrified doesn't really look all that different. The interior of the vehicle also is pretty much identical to the gas version, of course, with a couple of key differences. First thing I want to show you guys, however, is the key fob. You can see this is the current Genesis key. This vehicle does come with the Smart Park feature where you can move and or move forward and reverse the vehicle remotely from the fob. You can also remote start it. It's a really nice fob that feels good in your hands. It feels high quality. You also should be able to access this vehicle through your smartphone if you guys have access to it, and it also has a fingerprint scanner, although it doesn't have the facial recognition that the GV60 has. Now, as you approach the door handle, you can see it's very conventional. Unlike the GV60, you lock the door by touching that button, the mirrors fold in. You want to unlock the door, just touch the back of that. It's a traditional pull-out handle, not an electronic digital latch system, but you can see here, my tester with the silver exterior has kind of like this two-tone grayish white interior. There's also a black interior option, but I definitely prefer this. I think it just looks a lot more elegant and upscale versus the black interior. You can see the door panel has kind of like a two-tone look to it where you have this kind of dark navy blue upper portion, a white cream colored here on the lower portion, real metal trim for the door handles, for the window controls. You have two-person memory seats. You have a premium 15-speaker Lexicon stereo, and then you can see the real stitching here on the dash and on the door panel is included with the Prestige package that my tester has. These seats adjust in 16 different ways. They are heated and ventilated, and they also include a driver's side massage function, which again is standard even on the base version. Along with the heated and cooled seats. That's going to be standard on even the base version of the GV70 Electrified. Now, getting inside the vehicle, with around 7 inches of ground clearance, it has a nice easy step-in height. It feels not quite as high as other traditional SUVs, but as I get in and shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, which leads that impression of quality. Now, as I get in the vehicle, you can see the fingerprint scanner is right here, but I don't have that set up. So just push that button here. You can see it turns everything on. And it looks practically identical to the gas-powered version, but there's no electric vehicle starter noise. It just said ready to drive, where it showed a green car icon, as you guys saw. And you can see here, my tester being the Prestige package, basically includes all the bells and whistles. There's a heads-up display, which is included with that. You have a 12.3-inch fully digital 3-dimensional instrument cluster, which is the same one that's in the gas-powered model with slightly different look to the graphics and different gauges, obviously. And then you have a 14.5-inch Genesis head unit here, which is a touchscreen. It's still lacking wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, but you can see here my phone is connected via the USB-A connection over here, and it looks fantastic. It doesn't give you the ability to take up the full screen, but that's okay because this screen right here, you can kind of customize to have it show whatever you'd like. I personally like it on CarPlay with the audio information over there to the side. Now, over here on the dash, you can see it's got a soft touch stitched material, which is genuine stitching. It's also soft touch with stitching here. This is included with the Prestige package for $7,000. You have this haptic touch area here, which includes dual zone climate control, heated and cooled seats, which as you can see is in the actual screen itself. Hard buttons, which is nice, and they're also accented in metal. You have more metal trim along the center stack over here, and then when I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's a full 360 camera with parking sensors, trajectory. You can also do a full 360 perimeter scan, which again, this is all really fantastic stuff. Really puts this car right up there with all the European entries. Which is important. Going over here to the Genesis display, you can see there is built-in embedded GPS, which is nice. This vehicle doesn't look all that different from every other Hyundai product for the map graphics, but you can see here it is relatively quick and snappy, but most of you are going to end up using your smartphone anyways. There's an EV little page here that shows you how far you can go on a full charge, whether you have the climate control on or off. You can also adjust how you want this vehicle to charge, whether you want it to charge to max power or you want to set it up to like 80% max charge instead, which is nice. Down over here, you can see your drive mode selector is this toggle. It offers 5 different modes. There's an eco, comfort, sport, my mode, and then there's also a snow mode. If you press and hold the drive button, it'll put it into a snow mode there, which would be great for those of you who live in the snow belt states. Over here you can see this rotary dial controls the infotainment system if you guys don't want to use it as a touchscreen. It's a little bit of a far reach, so it's nice that they offer you that as well. You can see this shifter. It's not that fancy crystal ball shifter that rotates in the GV60, but you can see it's still glass. It also has ambient LED lighting, which you can adjust the color for. I think there's like 64 different colors. You can see over here, leather stitching along the center console, padded area over here. Open this up, you can see 12 volt and a pretty deep storage compartment. Wireless phone charging pad is in here, along with this nice little lid that covers up. And then the seats, this is the premium Napa leather with the diamond quilted stitching and the contrasting piping, which is nice. The seats are comfortable and supportive. The massage is only on the driver's side though, not on the passenger side, and the heated and cooled seat works really well. Open up the glove box, you can see it's a bin style, it's damped, it's lined with felt. It offers pretty good amount of storage. You have LED map lighting in here, which is nice. You have an auto dimming rear view mirror, but Genesis doesn't offer a digital camera rear view mirror. And then the steering wheel you can see is pretty much the same that's in the sport version of the GV70. You can see there's a power, tilt, and telescoping function. You have paddles to control your regen braking. I like how there's leather stitching along the airbag cover. And then the boost button here, this is what this is how you know that this is the electric version, because the gas model doesn't have that boost function. That adds basically an extra 40 or 60 horsepower, or I'm sorry, 50 horsepower for about 10 seconds. So that is a pretty fun feature. I'll show you guys that when I'm driving the car. But overall, you can see the interior looks pretty much the same. And my only gripe really is the fact that it doesn't have wireless CarPlay, but you have really nice high quality materials. It feels just as luxurious as the gas model, and the build quality of this car is impeccable. It also smells really nice in here, so it kind of gives you that impression of quality, even though you're in the electric version. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat, because Genesis is very proud of the fact that they didn't compromise any interior space by going to the electric model. You can see the floor is a little bit higher, but the vehicle itself still offers plenty of room. The back seat offers around 37.5 inches of legroom back here, which is the same as the gas model. You have these manual rear sunshades, which is included with the Prestige package, and then along with more of that leather stitching along the door panel and whatnot, and the aluminum trim, so it's really nice. The seats backs themselves, you can fold them down, obviously, but they also offer a recline function, the same beautiful stitched leather. But let me go ahead and get back here and show you guys the space. I'll recline this back, close the door. You can see the space back here is pretty good. It doesn't slide forward and back, but you can see this is where I'd have the seat to drive, I believe, for my driving position. For somebody my height, you can see 37 inches of legroom is perfectly acceptable. I can get back here and cross my legs, which is fine. You have heated rear seats, which is included with the Prestige package, along with tri-zone climate control. You have rear seat air vents. You have a USB charging port over here. You can see it's just two USB-A's. Surprised it's not a USB-C. You have two little map pockets, storage pockets over here, and then you can see, fold this down, there's an armrest and gives you two cup holders, and the seats themselves are pretty comfortable and supportive. You can see above me, big panoramic glass roof, which is standard even on the base version. It's also very nice and dark tinted, which I like, so that makes me want to leave it open all the time. And you can see the suede Alcantara on the headliner and on the pillars over here. That is included with the Prestige package. So the back seat definitely still has plenty of space for adults. You could fit a child seat back here, but just keep in mind, if you want a bigger back seat, you may want to step it up to like the GV80, which technically at the moment Genesis doesn't offer an all-electric version of their larger SUV. So when I finally had a chance to drive the all-new Genesis GV70 nearly 2 years ago, I proclaimed it to be one of my favorite compact luxury SUVs. I mean, you couldn't go wrong with either the twin-turbo V6 or the turbocharged 4-cylinder, so now that we're finally driving the electric model, this has a whopping $10,000 premium over the V6, but it is also the most powerful version of the GV70, and with it being all electric and built in their plant in Alabama, it qualifies for the $7,500 federal tax credit, which is definitely a nice little perk, which actually makes this thing about the same price as the 6-cylinder model, fully loaded when you factor in that tax credit, as long as you qualify and as long as this vehicle continues to qualify for it. But let's go ahead and 0 to 60 test it, because I don't believe Genesis quotes a time. We're starting off with a full charge. It was showing around 254 in eco, 232 in sport mode. We'll put it into the boost mode as well, and we'll just floor it. Instantaneous thrust. There's a little bit of torque steer. 3.82 seconds. Wow. It's funny because this is an all-wheel drive vehicle, but there is a smidge of torque steer, which is kind of hilarious, but that is fast. That time there makes it about a second faster than the V6. And I think, you know, if I had to guess, you know, this thing is definitely faster than the Lexus RZ, but, you know, even though Genesis didn't quote a 0 to 60 time, they probably would have been conservative, but that is an impressive time. Remember, this has the same powertrain out of the GV70 Performance, so it has about 100 more horsepower than the V6 when you have it in boost mode. Now, that boost mode only works for about 10 seconds, and it adds like an extra 60-ish horsepower or so. But let's go ahead and see what we can get on this stretch here. I'm not going to engage the boost mode this time. I'm just going to floor it in regular sport, which means we have 429 horsepower. Definitely doesn't feel quite as fast. I just don't get as much tunnel vision, but 4.33 here versus 3.8. So let's say when you activate the boost mode, it'll probably shave off about 0.4 seconds off the 0 to 60, because on that stretch, it's a little more uphill. We'll try it one more time on another stretch where it's exactly perfectly level, kind of like our first run, but man, this thing is fast. I am shocked. I mean, not really. This is a wonderful electric powertrain. It's, you know, kind of this weird hodgepodge of Genesis stuffing in their eGMP architecture in a rear-wheel drive gas powertrain or platform like the GV70, and unlike, you know, the 6-cylinder version, put your foot down, it just has instant throttle response. I mean, it just and here, once you get it going, there's no more torque steer, but you feel the front end lifting up tremendously, and it's just unbelievable how quick this vehicle is. Now, in terms of the ride quality, this model, I believe, actually rides a little bit better. We do have adaptive dampers, which means I can fiddle with the ride quality settings later on. But in this mode, in sport, it feels like everything is tightened up. The throttle gets more sensitive, the suspension gets stiffer, the steering gets heavier, and you definitely feel the extra weight. This car weighs 700 pounds more than the gas V6, and you notice that weight, but because of all that extra power, like 125 more pound-feet of torque, the forward thrust, basically, the feeling of that eliminates the extra weight. It's just in the corners you're going to notice it because, hello, you can't argue with the laws of physics. Oh my God, this thing is unbelievably fast. I love how fast this thing is. I mean, what's there not to like about that? Because so many EVs have quick acceleration. This car also creates like a fake sound, and it also has the regen braking where it has one pedal drive, which I like the one pedal drive in this car. You put it in iPedal, it'll slow down almost to a complete stop, which is nice when you're stuck in bumper to bumper traffic. But this is the stretch that I want to redo my final 0 to 60 test on. We're going to put it in boost mode again, and we're just going to floor it. Spins out the front tires. Oh my God, this thing just wants to get sideways, or it wants to squirm around as it struggles for grip. 3.78 there. So yeah, this is about as fast. Actually, it's a smidge quicker than the GV60 Performance that I tested about a year and a half ago. That did it in about 3.89 seconds. 3.9, so this is 0.1 seconds faster, even though this car is about 100 pounds heavier, and I'm noticing it puts the power down a little bit better. So it's interesting because this platform is a mixture of an internal combustion with the eGMP stuffed in it, but I think it actually drives better and feels like a better car versus the GV60. So that's saying something about, you know, Genesis and, you know, how good the GV60 or GV70 already is on its own, and then you add the electric component and it's just like God. And the interesting thing is, like, while you're accelerating in this vehicle, you could basically just push the boost button, and what that happens is you'll notice an instant shove. And that's kind of the beauty about the boost button, is it adds that extra power for 10 seconds, and there's no limit how many times you can push that button, which is kind of fun if you think about it. This is where you definitely notice the suspension is a little bit soft at times when even in sport mode, because there's so much torque, the whole body just kind of bucks around as you put your foot down. But here you can really feel the additional weight. The steering doesn't really have much in terms of feedback, but this is a luxury SUV and it's comfortable. I'm sitting here getting a massage. It's really quiet in here thanks to the electric motor. Obviously there's no internal combustion engine, but I want to just show you guys really quick, because I'm going to put my foot down here, put the boost button down, and it's like, oh, wow, you just get tunnel vision. It even tells you they're boosting for 5s. Oh, God, that's insane. That's a good way to wake up your passengers if they're not paying attention. So I like that. I like that a lot. But anyways, just driving, or in terms of range, let's talk about the range, because I took this vehicle on a long road trip to New York where I put about 190 miles in a one-way trip. Now, it's rated at 236 from the EPA. On a full charge in Eco, it was showing 254. That's with the climate off. Turn the climate on, it drops to like 247. On that trip to New York, I drove all the way over there and it was showing about 25 miles of range left. Now, that would put the range real world at around 230. Now, we are in ideal temperature conditions. It's about 70 degrees outside. It's sunny. There was no issues with the weather. It wasn't cold. So 230 miles in real world driving on the highway is pretty good. This thing was averaging around 3 miles per kilowatt, which is actually a really high number considering how big and heavy this vehicle is. And it's not really the most aerodynamically efficient. But that's impressive, and that's much better range versus what Lexus offers in the RZ. Now, I haven't had a chance to test out the RZ for a full week, and because this vehicle has the 800-volt architecture, it charges really quick in just 18 minutes from 10 to 80%, and it even charges quick on a level 2 in about 7 hours when you plug it in at home on a 48 amp. So even though it doesn't have that 300-mile range that, you know, most people would prefer, I would argue that it charges fast enough and it is enough to take a 3-hour road trip in without feeling too much range anxiety, especially with how fast this vehicle charges. Now, would it be nice if Genesis offered over 300 miles of range? Absolutely. But, you know, the company promises to go all electric by the year 2030. Actually, after the year 2025, they won't be introducing any more gasoline-powered new vehicles. So the GV70 already was a great SUV in internal combustion form, and in electric form, it just makes it even better. So it's understandable why Genesis decides to charge that $10,000 premium if you guys want to go for this model. So after spending a full week with the 2023 electrified GV70, it's pretty easy to see why Genesis would introduce this into the lineup, because it's been rather a simple transition for them to go from the gas to an electric version. As you guys saw, the performance of this car is stellar. 0 to 60 in 3.78 seconds makes this the quickest version of the GV70 and among the quickest in the segment. And in terms of the real world range, I was getting around 230 on the highway, whereas in the city, it should do around 250 miles, which is good, not great. It would be nice if Genesis would do over 300 miles of electric only range, but that is offset by the fact that the vehicle here charges so quickly because it runs on the 800-volt architecture. The interior is just as lovely as the gas version, plenty of space. There's no compromises to interior space, to rear seat legroom, to cargo space. It has top quality materials. It has great tech in it, along with a high quality construction. Really, my only criticism is the lack of wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which I'm still hoping that Genesis, Hyundai, and Kia will add eventually, but this model here, of course, still lacks it. And in terms of just daily driving this vehicle, it's comfortable, it's quiet, it's smooth. It's not the sportiest, but that's okay, because that's not necessarily the mission with this type of vehicle. You want it to be comfortable, quiet, and just luxurious. And that's exactly what the GV70 Electrified nails. Now, if you are looking to purchase this vehicle, it is in Genesis dealerships now. It's available in 15 states across the US, so Genesis is trying to expand the availability of the electrified model. And because this vehicle is built in Alabama, it's the first Genesis vehicle built in the United States, it technically does qualify for the $7,500 tax credit as of this filming, which is April 14th. Eventually, after April 18th, the government will re-evaluate, and this may only end up qualifying for half of that amount, which still, this makes this car a little bit less expensive versus the GV60, which technically at a base price of $65,000 for this model here for the advanced trim, which comes standard with the high performance powertrain, it's about $5,000 more than the GV60. However, keep in mind, when you add the performance package onto the GV60, it basically makes this the same price. Now, my tester with the Prestige package for about $7,000 includes a lot of nice upgrades. With destination and this color charge, you're looking at around $74,000. Now, 74 grand minus the $7,500 federal tax credit puts it around 67 grand, which again is a lot of money, but it actually is the same price as the gas model, and it also makes the GV70 a little bit more expensive versus its main competitor, the Lexus RZ. Really, if you start comparing it to the Tesla Model Y, this is where this car gets super expensive because Tesla keeps dropping the price of their vehicles. You can essentially get a Model Y for around $55,000 versus, you know, $72,000 for this. But I would argue that the Genesis charges faster, it looks better, it has a way nicer interior with high quality premium materials. It actually feels like a luxury car as opposed to feeling like just a premium electric vehicle. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2023 Genesis GV70 Electrified. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.